welcome to the show where we share the stories of the many who intersect with our healthcare system but are rarely heard from. My name is Kevin Poe, founder and editor of Kevin MD. Rate and review the show at kevinmd.com/rate. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/follow. Today's show, we have Liz Aguirre. She is an internal medicine physician. Her Kevin MD article is titled, Nurture Yourself, Get Rest, and Allow Yourself the Space You Need to Heal. Liz, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So we'll get into your article in a little bit. First off, briefly share your story and journey to where you are today.
Yeah, I don't know. My journey has been a little convoluted, and I realized within the last few years, I have been running from myself, and it was something I didn't realize for a long time. I grew up in extreme poverty, and a lot of people don't really know what is extreme poverty. Well, I was the kid who lived in a tent for a while, who dug out of dumpsters for food, and just had a really challenging childhood. So, I mean, I remember the specific moment that I decided I would never live that life again. And it just made me work really hard. And I had always had that work hard approach. It took hard work and grit to succeed, and it got me through medical school. And then I found myself burnt out over and over again. And I got scared the third time it happened
Mm,
because I realized that my work harder approach wasn't working anymore. And I didn't know what to do. And so that's when I had to really take the time to focus on myself and figure out where I was, how I got there, why it wasn't working. And at the end of the day, it came down to the basic fact that I was too tired. I was too sleep deprived.
mhm.
I had no energy. I had an empty cup and I had nothing left to give. And that started my journey into focus on myself and my well being and realizing that the key to all of our success is really to be the best version of ourselves. And this led to me speaking and sharing my experience with others. And then I created a podcast and newsletter. And this whole journey started because I figured out that it was me that I was running from, not the systems, not the, patients, not how many charts I had to do. It was me.
So give us an example of what it was like during one of your episodes of Burnout. What exactly were you feeling? And at what point did you realize that working harder wasn't going to solve that problem? Paint us a picture of what exactly that was like.
Oh man, that's so easy. So, my first job out of residency, I was working a 36-hour shift every third day. And so the in between shifts were anywhere between 12 and 18 hours. I had twins my first pregnancy, and I got home and on the way home I told my husband, "Do not put them to bed. I will be there."
Hmm.
Well, I had to turn around because a patient wasn't doing well. And I got there 30 minutes late. He was standing at the bottom of the stairs. My baby girls were not in his arms, and I just broke down crying because it had been 3 days since I even saw them. They were asleep when I left, and they were asleep when I got home. I decided I wouldn't do that anymore. I resigned the next day. And I had to give a 6-month notice. I worked out that contract. I went to my next job. I thought, wow, I can't believe people are complaining about this. This is the most amazing job ever. I will never complain about this job. And then I got burnt out in that job too. And I would get home, I was agitated with my kids, and I was spending time with them because I needed to. I was their mom. I didn't want them to not know their mom and not have a connection. And my husband would say, this isn't time that it's not time that they're going to remember. They're
Hmm.
just going to remember you being angry and frustrated. So that led me resigning from that job and going into a non-clinical job. And it's when I experienced burnout in the non-clinical job that I realized, wait a minute, I'm not working 12-hour days. I'm not on pager. I'm not working weekends. I have all evenings, holidays, vacation. I have it all. Why am I burnt out? Why am I overwhelmed? Why do not I not feel happy? I'm not happy. And that's when I realized I keep running and I keep running. And right now, this is the easiest I could ever imagine it being. And I'm burned out again. That's when I realized I had to change.
And we talk more about some of the changes that you implemented in your Kevin MD article. It's titled Nurture Yourself, Get Rest, and Allow Yourself the Space You Need to Heal. Now, for those who didn't get a chance to read that article, just walk my audience through it and share the story of why you decided to write it.
Yeah. I never intended for this to be an article that was published. I live in Texas, and an hour and a half away from me, the major shooting, the Uvalde shooting occurred. And I was so overwhelmed by emotion, and I didn't know how to release it. It had been a couple of days now, and I could not shake that feeling.
Mhm.
One, it's in my home state. Two, it's very close to me. Three, my daughters are in fourth grade, and there was just so much there. And my inclination is, how can I help? What can I do? And I just felt hopeless.
Mhm.
And then I realized, look, I am doing what I feel I can do to give back, to help others by sharing my message and sharing how I've evolved and how I take care of myself to be the best version of myself. Because guess what? I do not have the answers for everything, but I do know that there are other people who have some ideas on how to handle the gun situation, how to handle obesity, how to handle depression, but they're too tired. They're overworked. They're sleep deprived. They can't even begin to be part of the solution because they also have nothing left to give.
Mhm.
And so I realized that my giving was by helping others understand that we do not need to continue this culture of self sacrifice, of not taking care of ourselves, and doing our jobs at the expense of our well being. We will never achieve optimal success as long as we're doing that. And so that's how the article was born. It just, my emotions came out of me, and I
Mhm.
realized, I don't have all the answers. But together, if we can learn to nurture ourselves, that's when things start to become more clear. That's when our ideas start to flourish. And that's when the best of ourselves comes out.
So take us deeper. What are some of the exact changes that you made to improve your situation?
Yeah. First of all, I had to learn to start saying no.
Mhm.
It was very customary for me to just say yes to everything because I thought everybody else had it figured out and it was so easy for them. And if I said no, that wasn't even a possibility. Number one, I thought that I would lose my job because I wasn't keeping up with my peers. I wasn't performing as well. And in reality, we were all suffering. We just didn't know it. Number two is one of the hardest things I think is to be open to something that does not seem possible at the time. It seemed impossible to get an 8-hour night of sleep when I had charts to finish, I had kids I needed to give time to, I had a husband and a marriage that I did not want to see fall apart. So it didn't seem possible for me to say, I'm sorry, I'm going to put everything on hold because mommy needs some sleep right now. But I had a very supportive husband who was like, no, we want you. We want the real you. And this person that we're getting is not it. And so I was very fortunate that I had my husband who was seeing me and seeing the suffering and said, I want you to sleep. No, before you go spend time with the kids, I want you to sit down and eat. You don't need to do the laundry. You don't need to do this. I'm going to help you with this. But I didn't have that insight. I felt like, what kind of mom am I if I'm not doing all of this? So my husband helped me to learn to take a step back, realize I didn't have to do it all myself, and where I was really hurting, spend the time and effort, sleep, eating, getting outside just to go for a walk. And one of the biggest things that I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to do this is meditating. And
Mhm.
it truly has allowed me to have that space to just feel like I have a moment to myself without any demands, any expectations, just to be. And these little things that are so simple, I had to convince myself that I was allowed to do them. And so when I give talks and when I speak to other people, that's the first thing I say. I give you permission to get the sleep you need. I give you permission to stop and eat. And it seems so silly, but we don't give ourselves permission. We automatically kill ourselves. It's not possible. I have too much to do.
So I want to touch about that first point about saying no, about setting boundaries, because I hear a lot of physicians have trouble with that. Take us into that process in terms of the ability to say no, because as you know, physicians, we're conditioned to be people pleasers. We say yes
Yes.
to everything. So tell us a little bit about that process so physicians can understand what it
Right.
took for you to say no and set those boundaries.
Yeah. So just to give an example of how bad I was before and would not say no and would not advocate for myself. When my daughter was 6 months old, she had to go in an ambulance to the emergency room. And I had 26 patients I had to round on in the hospital.
Mm,
There was only me and another physician who had equal number of patients. And so my husband called me and I said, call an ambulance, get her to the emergency room. But not for 1 second did I entertain the possibility of me being able to say, no, I can't round today. I can't take care of these patients. I have to go.
mm.
Not for 1 second. I went into a bathroom. I cried my eyeballs out and I was distracted the entire day until I knew my daughter was safe. So that's where it came from. Fast forward to now, if I were to do things differently first, I wouldn't accept the self sacrifice. I would understand there is always somebody to help. If I were in a car accident and I died today, they would figure it out. And so it doesn't make sense. Our logical minds are not thinking logically. I just heard a story the other day about a news anchor who was suspended because she was slurring her words when she was speaking on live.
Mhm.
And it came out she had done a 6 a.m. broadcast, a 6 p.m. broadcast, and she was scheduled for the 11 p.m. broadcast. And she had been doing that for weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what we do as doctors. When we hear that story, we're saying that's ridiculous, but that's what we do as doctors. So, how do you set those boundaries? Is we have to start the communication. If we go to our leadership and say, it is not physically possible, I am going to have a car accident and die. I am so exhausted. I absolutely cannot do this shift. Are they going to say, I'm sorry, you have to? I know you feel like it's not safe and you're going to die, and maybe it's not safe for the patients, but you have to. They're not going to say that. And if they do, we have the choice to say no. We can say, I will not put my patients at jeopardy and I will not put my life at jeopardy. And they will have to figure it out. The problem is, we don't believe that. We don't think they'll have to figure it out, but they do. We should not sacrifice our well being or that of our patients. Think about the Hippocratic Oath. I was just thinking this the other day. As physicians, we took an oath to do no harm.
Mhm.
All of us have been in this position through residency where we have caused harm to ourselves. That oath definitely applies to us too. And, I think the biggest thing is realizing that yes, it is possible, even if it doesn't seem like it at the moment. But when you're in that sleep deprived, stressful, hungry, angry situation, you just can't see the possibilities. You just think, I have no choice. I have to do this. But we always have a choice. And the choice should never be to sacrifice our well being or that of our patients. And that's not to say that we're going to have some challenging times and we will have to do some overnight shifts and we will have some, weeks that we have to work more than others, but there should always be that recovery.
Mhm.
That should always be built in. And if there's not that recovery, it's not reasonable. And any reasonable human being should understand that.
Let's say I'm a physician listening, and what you're describing, I'm sure describes the situations of a lot of physicians today.
Mhm.
And you presented a lot of fantastic tips and guidance. But I want to know what the immediate next step would be, because doctors who listen to this and think to themselves, hey, this sounds like me, but what do I do next? So I want you to talk to these doctors.
Yeah.
What should they do
Before,
next?
yeah, I think communication is critical. The problem is we tell ourselves no before we give our leadership a chance to say no. We tell ourselves no. Just like I didn't even ask if I could be in the emergency room with my 6 month old and leave. I didn't even ask. To me, the answer was automatically no. And so I think it starts with communication and it starts with vulnerability. I was so afraid that people would find out that I was not a good doctor because I couldn't handle it. I did not want anybody to see that part of me, to think I'm the only one that can't handle it. So I told myself no. When I really started struggling in that second hospitalist position and I went, you know what they told me? They told me, we'll figure it out. We're going to get someone to cover you tomorrow. You take the day. You need it. That's what I was told. But in my mind, no, the answer was no. So the answer is we have to be willing to be vulnerable and be okay with other people seeing that we're not made of steel,
Hmm.
because we're not. And as we get further into, I think, the healthcare crisis, more and more physicians are leaving. More and more physicians are leaving healthcare, and we're going to be in big trouble. I think this speaks volumes to the fact that everybody is tired, and we're not invincible, and we are human beings, and the culture does have to change. So communication is critical. Nobody wants to see doctors leaving their practices.
Mm.
Nobody wants to see people leaving medicine. And I think the tides are changing, where if we put our foot down and say, it's not physically possible, I just can't do it, then I think they're going to be more receptive than we think. And that has certainly been the case for me. I just didn't realize it at the time.
We're talking to Liz Aguirre. She is an internal medicine physician. Her Kevin MD article is titled Nurture Yourself, Get Rest, and Allow Yourself the Space You Need to Heal. Liz, what are some of your take-home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience?
I think the biggest thing for me is if we're not nurturing ourselves and we're not taking care of ourselves, we can't see the possibilities. It's so remote and so foreign that even someone who is extremely challenged right now and is extremely tired and is still practicing clinical medicine, the immediate thoughts that are going to come to mind are resistance and it's not possible. So my biggest take-home message is understanding that there is always a possibility for change and you always have a choice. And when we start to create that space for ourselves and we get sleep and we take care of our needs, then we start to see the possibilities that we couldn't see before. Now I'm in a much different place. Now I know I won't sacrifice myself like that again, because actually I am way better right now the way I am because I'm taking care of myself. So the biggest take home message is don't discount the possibility and take care of yourself, because then the possibilities start to explode before your eyes.
Liz, thank you so much for sharing your story time and insight. And thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks so much, Kevin.